Alright guys, in today's video I'll be showing you guys the top 3 best graveyard decks inside of Clash Royale right now. The first deck I'll be showing you guys is this Graveyard Freeze deck with Evo Inferno Dragon and Evo Executioner. The second deck I'll be showing you guys is this Evo Valk, Evo Witch deck with Vine. And then this third deck is one that has gone under the radar, and it is a Giant Skeleton Curse Evo Furnace graveyard deck, which has some crazy playability. So the first deck I'll be showing you guys is this. Let's get into the first game. Alright, game one here, guys, is against Rocket Cycle, which is a decent matchup for the Freeze graveyard deck, because they don't have a lot of answers to your graveyard Freeze, other than their spells. He goes for Dark Prince in the back. We just split Zappies to stun him, so we just get the counter, and then I Golden Knight as well. He Firecrackers, and I'm seeing here that Golden Knight's definitely going to be able to get a nice ability here. So we hit the Tesla, hit the Firecracker and the tower, and we get some easy chip damage at the start because of Golden Knight's ability. Then he miners, and it's pretty basic. We just plop a bowler on the anti-NATO spot. Obviously, he played it a little lower, but I still think it's the best play because usually they will go for that opposite corner from like the King Tower, so you can't NATO it and get a King Tower, but he didn't. It doesn't matter that we still counter with the bowler, and he has to row delivery on the bowler. We set up an Xe in the back to cycle the Evo, although he does rocket it. That is not too bad since we're already up a lot of damage because of that Golden Knight from earlier. And we just set up an Inferno Dragon in the back to get that Evo as well. He blocks the Inferno Dragon at the bridge, but we still graveyard anyways. Just doesn't matter because we have the freeze, so we can just freeze all of his defense. And look at that, we get a lot of damage because of the graveyard freeze combo. And freeze also pairs really well with Inferno Dragon, because 1 health Inferno Dragon can do a lot of damage. I was trying to get the ability to hit the miner and bounce back and block the Dark Prince, but we do not get it there. So we end up taking quite a bit of damage, but it doesn't really matter too much considering we just got a lot off that graveyard freeze, and we can go ahead and do that again later. And we use the ability just because this guy's deck doesn't really have a good way to punish the ability. He just used his miner and his Dark Prince, and even the Skellies are 1 elixir, so it's a even trade. Doesn't really matter too much. He rockets our Evo Executioner, which I definitely shouldn't have played, but we get the bowler down now in the back, and he's not going to have an easy way to deal with that. So we set up a push, and we just again go for a graveyard, like not being tanked for, just because we can freeze. And the freeze does put in quite a bit of work, as he has to spend 5 elixir worth of spells just to defend the graveyard. And we just NATO everything and get a nice Golden Knight dash on everything. We do miss the tower, but it is not that important because, I mean, we're just swarming this guy. He's kind of screwed here. And then the Evo Inferno Dragon gets quite a bit of value here. That's why we have it in the deck. It also works really with freeze. I could have easily frozen the tower there and taken it, but I just didn't. We go for another graveyard, and no matter really what he does, I just freeze it. And we go ahead and get the damage we need and take game number 1. Alright, game 2 here is against some type of mortar bait cycle. This is not a terrible matchup because you do have the bowler and the executioner, which are pretty tanky, but you can definitely start to struggle with some of the bait cards because you lack cycle aspects and cheap responses. So he mortars, we just go for an executioner to tank it. He then misplays our Dark Goblin, which is his air counter, so then I go ahead and go in for an Inferno Dragon, which will help take out that mortar. And we also have freeze in case he does play something next to the tower. He goes for a fireball. I could have definitely frozen there and done a lot of damage, but I was feeling a little safe. I didn't want to get pressured because he's playing a bait deck, but a freeze there definitely wouldn't have been a bad play either. At 10 elixir, we go ahead and split our Zappies just to get some more board presence, and he goes and cycles some skeletons to the back, telling me he also hit 10 elixir at the same time, so we're about even. So I would have been down 4 if I did go ahead and go for the freeze. NATO everything back so I have enough time to get an Executioner down, which clears out the minions. It would have been great if it took out the Dark Goblin, but he does spend one on skeletons and then plays a Knight, which does take quite a bit of damage because it is Evo Executioner and that thing has crazy DPS. He goes for a Mortar, and we just Bowler to tank it and Inferno Dragon on top of it. It's nice that he plays his minions on top of the Bowler, so it's not going to be able to protect the Mortar from the Inferno Dragon. And then the Inferno Dragon just takes out the minions as well. And we are in a pretty decent spot here because the deck is better in 2x Elixir. I'd say it's probably a bit worse in 3x. I think 2x is where it shines for sure because in 3x your opponent can definitely spend a lot more on counters for the graveyard after you've frozen. We go ahead and defend his Skeleton Barrel, Dark Goblin Push with the Freeze and Zappies. He then just cleans up our Zappies with a Barb Barrel. We get an Executioner down, which does tank for the Mortar, which is nice. I try and get a Bowler line up there. It doesn't really work, but it doesn't matter too much because it's really easy to defend Mortars with this deck. We place down our Evo Inferno Dragon, which is definitely going to put some work in. We also go for a Graveyard, and we bust out the Freeze for the second time in this game. And the Evo Inferno Dragon does charge up on those Skellies a little bit, but it's not too much. And then Evo Executioner just is a defensive, like, monstrosity. It just cleans up everything. And then he goes for Barb Barrel, otherwise he would have lost his Dark Goblin. And we had a nice Golden Knight down, which will clean up the Dark Goblin and the Barbarian from the Barbarian Barrel. And then he plays minions and his Evo Skelly Barrel, which is usually pretty hard to deal with, but we just NATO everything back, and then it just all kind of disappears. He goes for a defensive Mortar, which means his win condition is out of cycle, so we just go ahead and pressure him like crazy. Golden Knight gets a nice ability down, gets a lot of damage on tower here. And then Executioner, again, just cleans up everything here. So we're about into 3x Elixir here, and the Graveyard Freeze isn't too crazy in 3x, so we go ahead and get another one down before 3x, and we're already up quite a bit of damage. It does take out the Dark Goblin, which was really nice, because it's very hard to deal with, as we don't have a good spell for it. So then I go for a Golden Knight, as it is a decent way to get rid of those Dark Goblins or those like ranged units. Then we go for a nice NATO and Golden Knight ability to hit the tower and take the game. See you guys in game number 3. Game number 3 here, and this is against Hog Rider. This is a good matchup for you because you do have the NATO, but you do not have a building, so you have to use your NATO only for the Hog Rider, and you got to make sure not to get outcycled. And if you do get outcycled, you can still counter the Hog with the Zappies and the Executioner. The Bowler or the Zappies, which will just stun it and let you take it out pretty easily as well. So he goes for a Knight in the back, and we split our Zappies, and we go for an Inferno Dragon. He plays a Tesla, so I just go ahead and Graveyard and then freeze the Tesla and the tower, which lets our Inferno Dragon get a really, really nice bit of damage. He does have to go for Vines, but it isn't that big of a deal, as we do kill his entire counter push. And the reason I went for the Graveyard plus freeze there was because he played a Tesla, which cannot counter push us, so it's not that big of a deal. As in, that 4 elixir is not going to attack us, so we kind of get the freeze for free if you think about it. Plus, we had an Inferno Dragon as well, so the freeze gets double value in that sense. Plays a mini P.E.K.K.A on top of our Executioner. We just go for Zappies, and then we NATO the Hog in for the King Tower and the full counter. He goes for a nice defensive Tesla, meaning both his air counters are now out of cycle. So then we go ahead and place our Inferno Dragon in the back. He does have the vines to put our guy on the ground, but it doesn't really matter that much. And then we just go for a graveyard freeze here because we can, and it's really hard to deal with the Inferno Dragon, which will kill most of his counter push. And we get a really nice Golden Knight ability if he didn't play the Tesla, but even with the Tesla, it does tank for our Inferno Dragon. So he's got quite a bit of a counter push here, so I go for an Evo Executioner. He does vines it. I just NATO everything back, and then I just kind of panic a little bit and place an Inferno Dragon on top of the Hog Rider and the Knight, which will kill both of them. And then it does counter push a little bit, but it doesn't do that much. It does kill the Firecracker, which is very nice, although I do not have any way to support it. And even though we're down about 1,000 damage here, it doesn't really matter with this deck. Obviously, it would be nice if we weren't, but the fact that you can just kind of go for a Graveyard Freeze whenever and do quite a bit of damage is very nice. He does vines everything, but we still counter the Hog with no hits, partially because of the King Tower that we got earlier. And then now we can go for a decent graveyard here. It is even being tanked for, and we go for a freeze on top of everything, which does kill the Firecracker, and it gets us a lot of damage here. So now we counter pushes with a Knight and a Hog Rider, which we play Zappies and an Evo Executioner. That Evo Executioner does so much damage, and it pushes the Hog back, allowing no hits. Now we're only down about 600 damage, and I go with a very aggressive Golden Knight Graveyard, but it doesn't really matter. You can't really get punished too much, as you can just kind of freeze. I don't freeze, obviously, because it wouldn't have done too much, but we do get a really nice Golden Knight ability, and it clears out about everything. And we get a nice freeze plus NATO with that bowler lineup to force out a Hog Rider. He does vines, which almost takes our tower, but now we have a good counter push, and he doesn't have a big spell, so we can just Graveyard Freeze and take the last game with this deck. Deck number 2 is this Evo Witch, Evo Valk Graveyard deck with vines. It has the best defense in the game, and it has a decent cycle, so you can keep up with your opponent's cycle because of the Ice Spirit. Alright guys, game number 1 here, and this is against some type of E-Barb deck with Evo Witch. And honestly, I feel like we can defend this pretty easy with the Witch and the Goblin Hut, as well as the Evo Valkyrie, and just the normal Valkyrie being good at taking out the Witch. So he goes for guards in the back, and we play our Witch because our Witch obviously has splash damage. He fireballs our Witch, which I don't think is really a good play for him, but he does it nonetheless, and we clean it up with an Ice Spirit. And now we have a counter attacking Witch, which he has to log. We go ahead and place our Valkyrie in the back, cycling the Evo. Also, keep in mind that we will have Evo Witch the next time it gets in our hand. And then we poison the Witch, which is always a good play, as it leaves it at like 1 HP, so a Barb Barrel will take it out. Anything will take it out, actually. Like, even if the Valkyrie gets a hit, which it does, that just takes it out. I Goblin Hut really late, but really it's just because I was leaking Elixir there, and it takes out the bats. Obviously, those are going to die anyway, but we do get a Spear Goblin. And he does go E-Barbs at the bridge, which doesn't work out for him at all. Now that we have a counter-pushing Witch, which is practically a full health Witch because it heals, we go in for a Graveyard as well as a Vines on top of the tower here, which gets us a lot of damage. As you can see, this is just a crazy strategy, and it just does so much damage, and it's very hard to counter. He goes for an Evo Witch in the back, from what I would assume would be at 10 Elixir, so we are down 1, but it doesn't really matter. As I said, this is one of the most defensive decks in the game. So we go for a Witch and a Valkyrie to take out his push. He goes for E-Barbs at the bridge, but we get a nice Barb Barrel on the Witch, which takes it out. And then we Vines on the Witch to avoid any splash damage on our tower there. And now we have a little bit of a counter push, but it's really nothing. So I go for a Goblin Hut as soon as I see its guards here, because then we'll have a little bit of Spear Goblins, and now we have both of our Evos in our hand, so he's not going to be able to break through, and we are up a good 1,500 plus damage, so he's pretty much lost this game already. Again, we poison the Witch. The Spear Goblin gets a hit on it, which is really nice, and we go for a Graveyard along with a Vines here to seal the game, but it seems like he's already given up. So on to game number 2. Game number 2 here is against some type of bridge spam with Royal Hogs. He does have Mother Witch, and he does have Golden Knight. Golden Knight obviously being a very good counter to Witch, and Mother Witch being a very good counter to Graveyard, but we do still end up winning due to just good plays and the Vines, as well as avoiding the Golden Knight value for him. So we go for a nice Vines on the Ice Wizard, which does take it out. Also, we defended the Piggies pretty well. We go for a Goblin Hut because my hand isn't really well equipped to deal with it. I'm not going to play a Witch into the Golden Knight there and just give him free elixir. So we go for a nice Goblin Hut. He does ability early, and we just get a Valkyrie down, which will get us to the Evo next time. He does get an ability. I should have definitely played the Valkyrie a little higher, so he didn't get the value. I go for a poison just to get some chip damage on his tower and take out the Mother Witch. He does try and stop me from killing with the Valkyrie. Doesn't work. Plus the poison would have killed it anyway, so I don't really know what that play was by him. And we go for a nice Ice Spirit just to stop some damage, and it pulls the Royal Ghost back a little bit. The Royal Ghost does splash my tower. I don't even know how. That barely looked like it was gonna, but it does nonetheless. So we're down a good 1,500 damage here. But we still can definitely make up this damage deficit here. He goes for Piggies. We go for a nice Goblin Hut plus Bar Barrel to DPS them down, and it does kind of block the Mother Witch there. And we go for a Valkyrie, which is really nice that he plays a Royal Ghost, as it just doesn't do anything. It still kills the Mother Witch because it's Evo Valkyrie. He also doesn't get any counter push because our Evo Valkyrie just takes out his Ice Wizard. And then we go for a Evo Witch in the back. He goes for a Goblin Cage in the middle, so we go for a Graveyard with the Vines and a Poison to take out that Mother Witch and stop his value there. And the Poison is really nice because it helps lower the HP of the pigs, so we don't have to deal with them as much, and it also will kill the Mother Witch. So now we're up 400 damage, and this defense is pretty easy, considering Valkyrie is super good at dealing with Evo Royal Ghost. And he piggies the opposite lane, and the Goblin goes there as well, but we just Vines it. So we Mother Witches into our Witch, which gets him some piggies. Our towers are about equal. Actually, our left tower's quite a bit less HP, but it doesn't matter too much because he's got a big push on the right there. We go for a nice Evo Witch, which is super good on defense. He does get a very nice Golden Knight ability, but it doesn't reach our Evo Witch. It only reaches our normal one, which is great. And our Evo Witch is about full HP. Obviously it is, but it will cross the bridge at about full HP here. It's going to take a little bit of damage. And then we go for a blank Graveyard with a Vines, and we do a decent amount of damage. We're going to have to deal with a little bit of a counter push here. And he goes for a nice Golden Knight, which will take out our Evo Witch there. We go for a nice Valkyrie, which pulls everything in. It lags a little bit, I don't know why. And then we just go for a Bar Barrel and a late Goblin Hut. And this defends pretty much his entire push, and we're only down, well, we're actually just not down any damage, but he does kind of place his Mother Witch in the middle, which helps because it doesn't defend our Graveyard as well, and we take the win on to game number 3 with this deck. Game number 3 here with this deck really tests our defense as it is against Golem 3M, which is really weird, and we are pretty well equipped to deal with it, as we are well equipped to deal with anything, as we have Evo Witch and Evo Valkyrie, plus the Vines, which can be used defensively as well. He splits Skarmy in the back. I just go for a Witch on the side with more skeletons, and then I Vines his Elixir Pump. goes for Berserker on top of my Witch. We just go for a Goblin Hut at 10 elixir, just get one Spear Goblin, which counter pushes. He splits Barbs in the back, and that gives me a bit of poison value, being able to hit the Elixir Collector and the Barbarians. He goes for a Golem in the back, and obviously our best counter to Golem is a Evo Valk. We do not have it right now, so I just play mine in the back. So next time he Golems, I should have it. Now we just gotta defend this one with Evo Witch and the Goblin Hut. 3M's behind the Golem, and this would be pretty difficult with other decks, but with this deck it's really easy. As soon as we just take out the Golem here, I just go for a Vines and a Bar Barrel, and that does a lot of damage to him. Plus the Witch can splash on them and kill them fairly quickly. Our Witch nets us some nice damage here, and we get a Poison, which chips away his tower and stops a lot of the value of the Elixir Collector, only giving him a +1 trade, not a +2. We played our Valkyrie there to cycle to the Evo and to just stop every hit from the Berserker. His minion horde just gets wrecked by our Witch, and now we have Evo Witch in cycle for this Golem here. And since he spent so much on offense, I go for a Graveyard plus Vines combo here, just to get some easy damage, considering he can't play too much, because he just paid 8 elixir for the Golem. He can't put that much into the defense of the Graveyard. He does go for a 3M, I just poison it, which is a nice play you can do against decks that have a lot of squishy poisonable cards, and it kills the Barbs and the 3M. Now we have a bit of counter push with the Spear Goblins, and I go for a Graveyard plus Vines. I try to predict something. I still get some good damage, and we get a nice poison on the minion horde for a +2 trade and some tower damage. I play my Goblin Hut for his Golem. He goes Barbs behind it. I go for a Witch to splash and do damage to everything. Then I go for a Bar Barrel to also do damage to everything, and that Barbarian should help out on defense, getting a little bit of damage and tanking, which it does. And then we go for a Valkyrie, and all we do is take a little bit of Golemite damage, which isn't much at all. And then I just check to see how much damage poison does. It won't kill it. I'm just not used to using level 11s. And then we go for a Bar Barrel on top of the 3M. Now we have a counter push with a Witch, and I go for Graveyard plus Vines to try and take the game right here, but it doesn't work, so we just go for a Poison afterwards, and we take game number 3 as well onto the third and final deck. So the third deck here is very underground, and I haven't seen really anything on it, but essentially it's just Giant Skeleton Graveyard, and you got the Curse as well. It's got quite a bit of outplay ability because of the Curse being able to be used in niche scenarios and getting you some damage. So let's go ahead and get into the game. Game number 1 is against Hyperbait, which is decent for us, as they do usually have a pretty hard time dealing with beatdown pushes. But we aren't too beat downy, and they can have some cheap counters to our Graveyard, so it's not the best matchup in the world. So anyway, we go for a Furnace to take out the Suspicious Bush with only 1 hit. We can afford to take a hit, it's not that big of a deal. And at 10, we go for our Giant Skeleton in the back to see what he really has for it, and I've kind of already identified that it's bait, so it's going to be pretty hard for him to take it out. He does hit our minions with his Ice Spirit, but our minions still do help take out that Berserker. Our Giant Skeleton dies, but that's not a big deal at all. He's up 1 elixir as he just plays his Berserker, probably at 10, and we go for a Cannon to take out the Suspicious Bush for a -1 trade, but it's fine because we get to cycle the Evo, and we don't have to use any spells. We Furnace in the back, so our next Furnace will be Evo, plus we zap his Suspicious Bush next to his tower, so we get a little bit of chip damage, and we just take out the Mirrored Suspicious Bush for a +1 trade, because the Furnace will finish it off there. And we go for minions, just to help DPS anything he plays down. We go for a Giant Skeleton to be a defensive menace and just stop his push in its tracks. And then we also get a counter push with it because it has so much HP, and we get to put a Goblin Curse plus zap on his skeletons that he places next to his tower. In fact, we don't even need the zap, it still kills him because of the buff to its damage. And he misses the log on one skeleton, and then he misses his pull with the Berserker, and we practically just take the game right there with his tower because of the Giant Skeleton Death Bomb. Again, showing the power of the Giant Skeleton in this deck. And we go for our Evo Furnace in the lane where his Princess Tower is still alive, and we go for a Giant Skeleton, but it seems like he's given up, and we take game number 1 with this deck. Game number 2 here is against some type of, seems like bridge spam deck as he has Bandit, but it does have Inferno Tower, which is a good counter to our Giant Skeleton. So we'll see how this one plays out. So we Giant Skeleton in response to his Bandit, as it is just, again, a defensive wall. I do note that he has a Skarmy. I elect to Bar Barrel it, 1, because he did play Musketeer, and 2, because I don't want him to know I have Zap yet. So hopefully he walks into a trap of Curse Zap later in the game when I Graveyard. He goes for an Inferno Tower to take out our Giant Skeleton, and we just go for a Cannon to cycle the Evo. We place our Furnace in the back to cycle the Evo and get some chip damage maybe with these Fire Spirits, but he does end up playing his Valkyrie, which is a very good counter to Graveyard, and he plays a Bandit, so we have to block that with the Giant Skeleton here. It does still kill our Furnace because he arrows us, but then he Skarmies, which we Curse and Zap to get a huge counter push, which he then does log, but he doesn't have anything to stop the Giant Skeleton, so we get a nice Death Bomb, which is a huge advantage in this game. Again, at 10 Elixir, we go for the Furnace in the back. Our next Furnace is Evo, and it also does bait out his Valkyrie, which again is a good counter to our Graveyard. We go for minions, kind of expecting a Bandit like he did last time, which he does Bandit eventually, but he does also Musketeer. And we go for a nice Giant Skeleton now that his Skarmy, which is his big tank killer, is out of cycle. Obviously, it does have that Inferno Tower, but that is pretty expensive, and it's not going to give him any counter push, which he does need if he wants to get some damage in. I go for a nice Graveyard on his tower, just to get hopefully a little bit of damage. It doesn't really work out too much. We get 3, 4, 5 skeleton hits, not that big, but we go for our Evo Furnace, which should clear up any push he has that he reinforces this Valkyrie with, and we just go for a nice Giant Skeleton on the barrel, because I kind of knew it was in the back. I thought it was in the back right. Doesn't really matter, still gets 0 hits. And then we just clean everything up on defense. Then we go for Graveyard, and I predict a Skarmy with the Goblin Curse and just take the game. Usually people with Skarmy will play their Skarmy to counter the Graveyard, so you can just easily predict it. That will be game number 2 with this deck. On to the third and final game of the video. Alright, third game of the video is against someone playing Minor Poison. They have Skarmy and Goblin Hut, so we are going to take advantage of the curse in this matchup. We easily countered his wall breakers and then he Skarmies, and we just go for a Furnace for the splash damage. The Skarmy dying will power up his Skeleton King, but that isn't too big of a deal. He does go for a Miner, I would assume to tank for the Skeleton King ability, but he's Skeleton King abilities anyway, even after it dies. We just go for a Curse because this cloned goblins die in one hit to the Curse, so it clears them up pretty easily. And it does give us a little bit of counter pressure, which he does have to spend a bar barrel on. And we get a minion hit, which doesn't really matter too much, but it is some damage, and damage does matter a lot in this matchup. We go for the giant skeleton in the back because I feel like it will be pretty hard to deal with in this matchup, and it does seem like it is because he does have to go for a Skarmy plus a Goblin Hut, which aren't really great, plus they can easily be manipulated or abused with Curse. He poisons our Furnace again, which is a little bit of damage on our tower, but we should be fine. All we gotta do is get to 2x Elixir, and then we can start pressuring like crazy. And we do go for a bar barrel prediction on his wall breakers, which we do get. Don't really know what his Miner was doing, but he still did it nonetheless. Now, as our giant skeleton crosses the bridge, I'm expecting him to Skarmy on our graveyard. So we just, again, go for a Goblin Curse Zap prediction on his Skarmy. We don't hit the whole Skarmy, but we hit enough of it. And that's tower down. And that's game number 3. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I hope you guys use these decks. They are very good, especially that last one. No one really knows about it, so you can catch a lot of people off guard. Good luck.